Hi, ladies. Welcome to The Women's Ball, the podcast where we're unlocking true stories, struggles, and triumphs of womanhood. My name is Sierra Simone, and I just want to say thank you to everyone for stopping by to hear what I have to say. But before we begin, I'd like to ask you all to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to share this link with someone else that you may think that might need this. So, like I said, my name is Sierra Simone, and today is not going to be the typical flow of an episode of what you will continuously see. Today, since it is the debut, I wanted to give you guys a little backstory of who I am and where I come from and how I have become the person that I am today. So we're gonna go ahead and kick it off, and we're gonna get the tea. And so we're gonna rewind back to 2016, 2017. I ended up getting in a relationship with a gentleman. I believe he was 7 or 8 years older than me. Just to keep it short, I originally did not like this man. I did not like this man at first. And I won't give too many details because if you know, you know. If you don't, I won't put anybody out there. Let bygones be bygones. But I met this guy while I was working at a mall, and I originally did not like him like that, but he was very persistent, and we went out, we began dating. And long story short, after 3 months, he started cheating on me. Now, you would think that, oh, Sierra, just leave. That's all you have to do. Just leave him. He doesn't deserve you anyway. You deserve better. But 20-year-old me was like, oh, I love this man so much. My pride was getting in the way, and I just could not let that man go. It was heavy on the that's my man, and I'm gonna stick beside him. So just to name a few things that has happened during the duration of that relationship, he asked me a question that no man should ever ask his woman if he's confident with who he is, how he is, and his ability to please her. He asked me a question, and I guess I gave a not so favorable answer. And so, not too long after that, I found out that he was cheating on me. He stated that the reason he cheated on me was how I answered that said question, which doesn't make it right, but hey, if that's his truth, that is his truth. But anywho, the person that he was cheating on me with ended up getting pregnant, and anyone in their right mind would have left, right? Not me. 20-year-old Sierra stayed because 20-year-old Sierra was way too prideful to say that my man got taken by some other female, right? So I ended up staying. Things got worse. Things got physical. There was mental abuse, physical abuse on both ends. I will admit that on both ends because I was swinging back. Um, yeah, there was just a lot of different things happening. Financial abuse. He was a very flashy person, trying to, buy me back. And I stayed in that relationship a lot longer than I should have. And honestly, if I would have known what I know now, I would have left him the moment that I found out I was cheating. But we're not there yet. We're still at 20-year-old Sierra in college, living her best life. 20-year-olds, 18 to 20-year-old, 21, even 22-ish. We think we know it all. And I am about to be 28 next month. So this was years ago. We think we know it all, and we don't. And so that relationship really was the foundation of me having this desire to do better. Once I got out of it and I was completely done with him, I had to look at myself and say, Sierra, what was it that, what was it about yourself that caused you to stay with this man for so long? Was it your pride? Which part of it was my pride? Was it your ego? Did you not love yourself? Did you feel like you deserved it? And it was a little bit of everything. But I had to go a little bit deeper. And this is the second aspect of, you know, the bouncing back better portion of my life story, because I had to realize that I have daddy issues. And it's a very hard thing to come to the realization of, because nobody ever wants to think that something is wrong with them, right? We all want to think that we're just, oh, so perfect. We don't need help. Like, yes, I fall short sometimes, but I don't fall short that much. But in reality, we do. And so, just to give a little backstory on that, part two. Yeah, daddy issues, major daddy issues. The daddy issues stemmed from, growing up, I was always a daddy's girl. I am one of three children. I am the youngest and I am the only girl. So you can only imagine just how much I was spoiled. And so I can't even remember the age, but somewhere between the age of 11 and 13. I think 13 is a stretch, but I would say 9, 10, 11-ish. My parents got separated because my father was cheating. At the time, I'm young. I'm like, I'm gonna get 2 Christmases, I'm gonna get 2 birthdays, gonna get double the presents. This is gonna be great. Well, I didn't realize that by suppressing my feelings back then, it would cause so much emotional damage to me later on. My father ended up moving out eventually, and the person that he cheated on my mom with, he ended up being with her and eventually coming to marry her. She has 3 daughters. And so, with me being the only girl, and then my dad going to care for another household where there's 3 young women growing up, I kind of felt left out. I kind of felt left behind. There was times where my dad would promise me things. Even to this day, my dad will promise me things and just not follow through. And I didn't realize it back then because I was not emotionally mature enough or mentally mature enough to recognize the pain that I was feeling behind my dad doing things for kids that are not his, but not doing for me. As far as I know, as far as like child support and stuff like that, as far as I know, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he paid those things. But as far as like showing up physically, he didn't really do it like that. And so ultimately, later on, when I began dating, that's when the results of my mismanaged emotions started to show up. And so that's why that abusive relationship that I was in was a turning point in my self-love journey, because I did a lot of reflection and it truly did show me like, hey, you have some deep rooted issues. You have some childhood trauma that you need to work through, or else you're going to continue to make these types of decisions, right? So, I took time, of course, my fast butt, not fast, but just fast to move on. I'm trying to find someone else. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna bounce back and I'm gonna find me another man that's gonna treat me better. But I tried to move on, and ultimately it just came down to the fact that, okay, like, you're still making these same decisions. We go through a phase where we think we know what we want and we think that we love ourselves more, and we come to realize that that's not the case. But we're going to hold off on this next part, and we're going to stay tuned into this, the childhood trauma. So another aspect of my said childhood trauma comes from, I think it kind of stems from just overall family struggles. So I come from a family where I like to say that we're not as close knit as most of other families are that you would see. Like, there was a point in time to where we would come together on holidays like Christmas or Thanksgiving, but as far as us seeing each other all the time, being around each other all the time, that just wasn't necessarily a thing for us. And I won't get into all of the reasons why. But there was just, as any family, there were just a lot of issues, but there was also a lot of issues being unresolved. And so for me, growing up and seeing that, I feel as if I had a poor idea of what healthy relationships romantically look like, as well as friendship wise. I feel like just relationally overall, I've struggled, especially when it comes to keeping female friends. I had a solid group of friends, in high school, a little bit afterwards, but, with growing up and having such unhealthy relationships to look at, or a lack thereof to look at, you start to normalize things that are not supposed to be normal. And you kind of start to create your own rules of how you think life should be going. And a lot of those rules, especially for a 13 to 21-year-old, might be super unhealthy for you. And so, with that being said, I grew up around a whole bunch of men. Yeah, a whole bunch of men. I didn't really have too many female cousins that I was close to, that I could talk to about certain things. Like I said, I have two older brothers. Most of my cousins are men. My dad and then my mom was really a tomboy for majority of my life. Yeah, I'm 20, about to be 28 now. I would say just a couple of years ago that kind of started to turn around a little bit. But yeah, for the majority of my life, I've always had a whole bunch of masculinity around me. And so that also shaped the dynamic of what I thought was a healthy relationship or friendship or whatever the case may be. And I've grown up to have very tough skin. So with me having that tough skin, of course, I would think that, well, you're tough. I have always been and always will be a crybaby, a proud one at that. But it's definitely made relationships for me. When I say relationships, I mean all kinds of relationships. It's made it to be a struggle for me because I was raised to believe that the moment somebody does something you don't like, you cut them off. I was raised to believe that things should go my way. I should have the upper hand. I should be the top dog. I should be this and I should be that. But just doing a lot of self reflection, I realized that a lot of those things were wrong. And my mom has even come to me and she's apologized and said, "Hey, Sierra, I know I taught you this thing, but that wasn't the right thing to teach you." But of course, after going years of knowing that that one thing was the quote unquote right thing to do, it's hard to unlearn those behaviors. So, all of those things kind of led up to me being this person that I am. And I would say that my family is very hardcore. Both of my parents were Marines. My grandfather on my mother's side was a police officer in Detroit. I think he was in the narcotics unit, if I'm not mistaken. My grandmother on my mom's side worked in prisons. My grandmother, I believe she was in the military as well. And my grandfather, I, no, he was in the military as well. My brother went to the military. My cousin went to the military. So I was always around a lot of like very tough, strong individuals, masculine individuals. And so for me, I always felt like an outcast. And it's crazy to say because people look at me today and they're like, "Oh, you're so outspoken. You just do what you want to do. Despite if there's anybody else to do it with you, you'll do it alone. You go after the things that you want." But that comes from the upbringing I had. I have tough skin, but also the con of that tough skin was I was forced into being okay with myself. I don't feel as if I was nurtured into loving myself. Um, like I said before, I was a girly girl around a whole bunch of masculine individuals. My mom didn't wear heels I mean, she did makeup. It was like just very basic makeup, maybe a little foundation, some red lipstick. Um, but like she wasn't into all of the more feminine or girly girl type things as I was. In the midst of me trying to figure out my style, in the midst of me trying to, just figure out who I am as a person, y'all. I don't know if y'all remember but when pastries was out, of course I had me a pair, and I just thought, I was the best thing since sliced bread and you couldn't tell me nothing. I had some pearls. And I vividly remember my mom picking at me for that. And I know that it wasn't ill intention, but to me, that stuff hurt my feelings. It hurt my confidence because I'm looking at it like, oh, well, you're my mom. Like, you're supposed to hype me up. But it's like, everything that I do that goes against who you are, it's kind of like I'm being talked about for it. And don't get me wrong, like my mom loved me. Excuse me, my mom loves me. And she's always supported me in anything that I do. But when you have individuals who have insecurities about themselves, and they have things that they have yet to deal with within themselves, sometimes people can unintentionally project those things onto you. So I won't spill on my mom's business or anything, but just to give a very surface level, just to give kind of a surface level idea of what my mom was dealing with. My mom has, being raised in the age that she was raised, being raised in the time frame in which she was raised in, there was a lot of body shaming going on. It wasn't as bigger, wasn't as accepted, or, so she was shamed a lot, even from her own parents, about how she looked, the things she wore. And I'm pretty sure it was subconsciously carried over into how she was with me. And because she didn't have a healthy mother-daughter relationship with her mom, she didn't have that example of how to have a healthy mother-daughter relationship with her daughter. And so I don't fault my mom. I can't fault her for not having a good example. And my mom did the best that she could do. She recognized certain issues with her and her mom's relationship, and she tried to, do things differently with me. And I can say from what I've heard, it's been very different than how she grew up, but subconsciously some of the things that she experienced, unfortunately, I had to experience. But, I've forgiven her. I've forgiven my father. And that's all a part of bouncing back better. And that's why I wanted to share my personal story with you guys, because I truly believe that my testimony will help somebody avoid some of the things that I've had to experience myself, some of the shortcomings, some of the, abusive relationships, or, being with someone who shows you that they don't want you, those internal feelings, all of that. And that's why I feel like God placed it in my heart to be an advocate of self love and loving yourself, because ultimately that love that I have for myself comes from God, because I know that God loves me. That is the fourth part of the story, is my spirituality, my relationship with God. If you know me, you know I have a 3-year-old son. I am not with his father anymore. I left my child's father when my son was 3 months old. He likes to claim that it was a mutual breakup, but I knew from the time I was about 6 months pregnant that I needed to walk away from him. As any mother, you don't want to raise your child in a broken home. So I attempted to make it work, to see if it could work, but of course things just kept getting worse, and I won't spill all the tea on that right now. Things did not work out with my child's father. I will say this one thing. I remember specifically, after him and I started officially dating as boyfriend girlfriend, I asked him, I said, BD, well, we're just gonna call him BD. I said, BD, why is it that we don't do like the same things that we did before we started dating? Like, we don't go on dates no more. We don't do this. We don't do that. Like, I kind of feel like you just stopped trying. And he looked me dead in my face, and said, I have you now. So why do I have to do any of that? And this was early on in our relationship. This was before any babies. This was before any of that. This was very early on. And so, reflecting back on my relationship with my child's father, I realized that that was the point in which I should have walked away. But I also realized that I thought I had been healed. But by looking back on that, I realized that I thought I was ready for a relationship but I wasn't. I think the time difference between abusive ex and BD was maybe like a year and a half, 2017, 18, really like a year and some change. And so I've been single now for 3 years. This upcoming August will be 4 years that I've been single. And I could honestly say that I feel the best that I've ever felt. I feel happy and content in my singleness. Um, I thank God every day for taking me out of that dark space, because after I left my child's father, I was struggling with postpartum depression really bad. Even while we were still together, I started therapy because, and this might be a trigger for some people who are moms, especially new moms, but I experienced terrible postpartum depression. It was so bad to the point to where I was seeing visions of myself or my child's father hurting our son. And mind you, at that time, he was only 2, 3, 4 months old. I mean, I would go in the bathroom by myself and I would just vividly see an image of like me throwing my son against the shower wall. Like it was that bad. And I can talk about it today, and it does make me a little emotional, but I could talk about it today, thank God, with a lot of therapy. Shout out to Lily Kadosh. But I could talk about it now. But at the time, I thought I was crazy. So not only was I going through, a very terrible relationship, I had an emotionally unavailable boyfriend, and I was dealing with postpartum. And honestly, if I'm gonna be real with y'all, let me just be real. I was watching my man prep for his next relationship while we were still together, after I already had his child. And we gonna get into that later. But so I was going through a lot. So, coming to the realization that I messed up again, and also having to deal with postpartum, having to grieve the loss of a relationship that I wanted to last, having to grieve the loss of a family unit that should have been united for the sake of our son, grieving the fact that I wasn't as good as I thought I was, grieving the loss of my old life, being able to pick up and go whenever, being able to go out and have drinks and do this and do that and live freely, to now being a mom. And I don't even consider myself a single mom. I consider myself a full-time mom. Yes, I have my child full-time, but his father is involved. Maybe not as much as I would like, but he's there. So I give props where it's due. He may not have been a good partner to me, but I will say that he loves his son. But yeah, so I was just grieving the loss of so many different things at one time. I ended up moving back with my mom. I'm sleeping on my mother's couch with my 3, 4 month old baby. Like, come on, y'all. Like, sleeping on my mother's couch. Mind you, the couch was comfortable. But let's be real, like with a 3, 4 month old baby, it's a 2-bedroom apartment. My mom's living there, I think with her boyfriend or husband at the time, whatever he was. My cousin was living there, my brother was living there, and I'm sleeping on a couch with a baby. So y'all could only imagine how broken I was. And so that was in August of 21, and I would say in May of 22. Um After attempting to do some dating, I was in a dark space. I was doing some things, got involved in some things I shouldn't have got involved in. I would say in May of 22, I realized I need to change. This is it. I can no longer make the same mistakes I've been making. I can no longer move the same way I've been moving. I have a child that is looking up to me. I don't want multiple different men being around my son. I don't want my son to just grow up thinking it's okay to not love yourself. I want my son to grow up seeing his mom be a very strong, feminine, confident woman who loves Jesus. Okay. So in May of 22, I began my self love journey. And what that looked like for me was basically I started to do things for myself that made me feel better. I forced myself to wear heels all the time. I don't care if the heels didn't match with the outfit. I'm still walking out the house with some heels on. You know, I forced myself to get dressed. I don't care if I'm going to the gas station. I'm going to have a cute tracksuit on or something. My hair is going to be done. I'm not walking out the house with a bonnet on. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I don't care if I'm going grocery shopping. I'm going to put a sundress on, something. And so that was the very beginning of my self-love journey. I would say a few weeks into that, I started looking up scriptures because I always felt like, pause. We're going to say this, and I'm going to keep it real with y'all. I've always felt like God has been calling me by my name. Always felt like it. But I have to admit, for years, I had been intentionally running away from God. Even in the abusive relationship, I was intentionally running from God. That gut feeling, that discernment, that Holy Spirit in me, I was running from it. I'm like, ain't for me. I got this. I'm good. That's that control issues. But I was intentionally running from God. So this time around in 22, I started to look up Bible verses that really described how God sees us as his children. Because that's the person I wanted to be. I wanted to be the person that God had been calling me for so many years to be. I didn't want to be this super hard, super aggressive person. I didn't want to be that Miss Independent. Sidebar, do I have the ability of being independent? Yes. But I never wanted to have to be independent. I never wanted to be so deep into my independence that I was one of those women like, oh, I don't need a man. I don't need a man for nothing. F men. I can do this on my own. I can do bad all by myself. No, baby. I'm a damsel in distress. I am a damsel in all kinds of distress. I need you. Just like I need the Lord, I need to find my husband, okay? Because I don't want to have to be independent. I want to be able to be submissive. And in order to do that, I have to first be submissive to God, right? And so, I started looking up these scriptures. I started to attempt to read my Bible. Everybody knows when you start reading your Bible, everybody want to start in Genesis, and then once you get to the next few books in the Bible, you start falling off because they start naming all these things and all the sacrifices, and things start sounding crazy. They talking about how women who bleed is dirty, and it's a lot of crazy stuff that go on in the Bible. But let me tell you, it's very interesting. Very interesting. So I didn't really know how to navigate my Bible. I didn't really know what I was reading. And eventually, I ended up going to church. My best friend has a friend, and we would all go out together. And I saw how much he loved the Lord. He was so open about it. So open about it. But he was also just himself. He wasn't one of those people that I like to call Bible thumpers. They want to put Bible verses and scriptures down your throat every 2 seconds and tell you that you're going to hell and this and that and the third, and want to point the finger but never want to look at themselves. Like, I call those people Bible thumpers, kind of like the Pharisees in the Bible. but yeah, he wasn't one of those. And so I asked him one day if I could go to church with him. And in October 2, I started going back to church after not being in church for years. And although that wasn't my church home, in my heart, I knew it wasn't my church home. I needed to go and get and receive what I received from those few services that I went to. Because I think I attended that church for maybe 2 to 3 months, I believe. And then I found my church home, Change Church. And back in October of 22, I made a commitment to myself and to God that I would go to church every single Sunday, unless I was dying of sickness or unless I was out of town. And even if I was out of town, I would watch it online. And that is the one promise I have kept. Since October of 22, I have been to church every single Sunday. I would say there's been maybe 3 Sundays where I have not attended church, and it was because I was sick, my son was sick, and then my grandfather passed away, so I was in Alabama for his funeral. That has been a very big part of this self-love journey for me, because I had to look to my creator in order for me to fully understand what love is. I was a hot mess. I was a hot mess. And to know that God met me where I was, despite me running, despite me intentionally running, and Him knowing I'm intentionally running. I never shamed His name. I never said God isn't real. I never did any of that. I've always believed, but I was just not ready to step up to that calling that He had over my life. And so knowing that He had that unconditional love for me, that He was willing to come to me and comfort me when I was ready to call on His name, when I didn't have anything, you know, I truly, truly felt like I owe Him everything. And I won't sit here and act like I'm some perfect Christian. I won't sit here and act like I don't still cuss, but I be cussing sometimes. I won't act like I'm holier than thou, but my heart posture is in the right place. I know I'm flawed. We all sin. I mean, that's why God sent His only Son down to not only forgive us for our sins, but to also show us what a life on to also show us what life on earth for followers of Christ should look like. And so one thing I love and appreciate about my church is it's called Change Church. Our mission is to live, love, and lead like Jesus so we can go out and change the world. And so we don't focus on the end times and revelation and you need to do this or you're going to hell and none of that. It's more so how can we look at God's work as well as Jesus's work while He was on this earth to be able to live a more fulfilling Christ-like lifestyle. You know, loving your neighbor as you love yourself. You know, praying for your enemies. You know, understanding what the Bible is and how to interpret it, reading it literally and applying it metaphorically to your life. You know, so I appreciate that about my church because I do believe that the things that we talk about and go over in my church were all of the things that I needed to really progress in this self-love journey because I can't do it by myself. And like I stated before, I never had a good example of what a solid, healthy relationship should look like between friends or significant others or anything of that nature. So being able to have a community within my church and being able to have people that I can have these conversations with who won't judge me. I mean, we all in there, we crazy now. But I love my change family because you walk in and from the moment that you walk in, you don't feel judged. You don't feel like you're being stared at like somebody's about to drop you in the pits of hell, you know? Like they're so welcoming. And you know, being a part of that has really brought me a sense of satisfaction because God has done so much for me. He's kept me from so many things. He's protected me. He's provided for me. He's been my healer. Being able to serve His people in His house makes me feel good because I know that I can't outgive God. I can't outgive God. And to be a part of someone else's journey, even if it's just with a smile and a hello, or even if it's just with a let me walk you to the bathroom instead of pointing to you which way to go, or even if it's a I see you crying, let me give a random stranger a hug. Being a part of someone else's walk with God, even if it's just making their day. I know that I've helped one of God's other children in some sort of way. And it warms my heart to know that I'm able to not only serve God in the call that He's had over my life, but being able to serve His children in His house. It's so many details that was left out, y'all. And I honestly, let me tell you, I had these notes here. I'm gonna just be real with y'all. I had these notes here, and baby, the screen is dark. I ain't even go over the notes, y'all. I tried to start, but I didn't want to keep looking away. And I wanted to keep this as true and authentic as possible. So if it seemed like I was jumping from thing to thing, I apologize. But y'all, this is me. This is Sierra Simone. This is me. And God has called me to start this podcast, to be vulnerable, share my testimony, and to really be a voice and a safe space for other women who might not feel like they have that. And so that's the point of me doing this. God called me to do this podcast a very long time ago, and I didn't listen. I'm a little hard-headed. I didn't listen. And I wish I would have sooner. But hey, everything happens for a reason. I'm at this point that I'm at now. I'm ready to be vulnerable with you guys. I'm ready to share my stories. I'm ready to answer questions. I'm ready to have interviews with different ladies about their stories and struggles. And I'm just honestly so excited to be able to create this space for rawness. Like, I don't want anybody to feel like they should be ashamed of who they are and where they came from. You know, we all have a story. Heck, I stayed with a man who had a baby on me. But anywho, I hope you guys stay tuned for the next few episodes. I would love to see you ladies back. And gents, if you guys want to know more about women and what we go through and understanding women, we are welcoming of everybody. Please, please, please drop a comment, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and please share it with someone else. Please share it with someone else. I truly do believe that God did not call all of us here for no reason. He didn't just call me. He's calling you guys too, for whatever reason. So I love you guys. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I look forward to meeting you guys. And you guys can get all of my information, all of the socials down at the bottom. You guys stay blessed. Have an amazing day. And thank you for watching The Women's Vault.